Hello and welcome back to my channel, and today we're revisiting Borderlands 3 with a slightly better setup than the last time. Last time we tried to launch this game with an i5 9600K stock with a 4070 Ti in 4K, and we were getting anywhere between 60 frames to 95 with a lot of stutters and a lot of junk in between on ultra settings, and honestly not exactly the thing you want to get on ultra settings if you want to play a Borderlands game. So just to recap the requirements for this game. So the minimum requirements are as stands: Intel i5 3570, 6GB of RAM, AMD Radeon 7970 or NVIDIA GeForce GTX 680 with recommended hardware being Windows 7 or 10, latest service pack, the Ryzen 5 2600 or Intel i7 4770, 16GB of RAM, Radeon RX 590 or GeForce GTX 1060, 6GB. So what we have now is i9 9900K, 4070 Ti, 32GB of RAM, 2K native monitor instead of playing on a TV, and the game is running off from an NVMe drive. So I want to see like where exactly do we gain or lose performance, because back in the day, as I said, in 4K, 96K and 4070 Ti we were getting 60 to 95, which is a huge gap. We're talking about 40 FPS in between, and sometimes it was dropping below. So anyway, let's have a look at the all things considered. We're launching exactly the same way, DirectX 11. My monitor is LG Ultra Gear, so full screen, 2K native resolution, no vertical sync, resolution scale 100%, we're not downscaling anything, no frame rate limit, field of view 110, vehicle field of view 110. For advanced, everything's on a ultra graphics preset. For anti-aliasing, we're using FXAA because, you know, you can pick a camp, TAA or FXCA. I do believe this is a little bit easier on the system, plus technically relatively the same graphical fidelity. It does not apply to 4K, but you know, if you go for 2K or full HD, you can play around, see what suits you best. Everything like that is maxed out to the ultra or high as far as the sliders go. Now for the benchmark, I did run it once, and it's giving me a fresh install at 109 for average, and average frame time being 9.17, which technically frame time wise is not bad at all considering the age of the i9 99K. But let's see if we can actually, you know, kick it up a notch, and we'll just see how it goes. So let's start the benchmark first, and we're gonna jump it in. MSI Afterburner, upper left corner, and we're gonna see how this rolls, because honestly, you know, when you play this game, and Borderlands 3 is a technically visually demanding game, it is not exactly an upgrade from the Borderlands 2 or pre-sequel, but it kind of keeps the same artistic art style, which does tax your system for the simple reason the black outlines on the objects are made in vector graphics, and if every object in the vector graphics is being displayed, your GPU needs to work overtime for it. And as we see now, the GPU is technically not doing anything. 57-60% load, 6GB of video memory used. We're pulling 12 gigs of RAM, and we're technically at 110-ish frames, and we're dropping below as well. Let's see how this goes, because this particular game's synthetic benchmark does not really represent the final quality of the in-game performance, which is kind of weird, because if you first launch this game for the first 2 times, I do believe there's a shader compilation happening in a background, because you do get a very stuttery benchmark, and the more you launch the benchmark, the better it gets. Now this is the second time I launched the benchmark after reinstalling the game from Steam, so I do have it on Epic Store, because originally this game was released on Epic Store, but I got it on Steam as well, because I just like Steam Launcher a bit better, and I don't mind, you know, Epic Store running in the background for DRM. But, you know, things considered, I did make a comparison video for Ubisoft titles running on native Uplay Launcher and Steam, and there was a very clear performance increase using the Steam Launcher, so I'm just following the same ideology for any other game I have on Steam, rather than using it for the native launcher, which is Epic Store, which, you know, I don't think Epic Store steals performance when it comes to the instance running, but, you know, Steam is just easier first and foremost, specifically when it comes to managing the download speeds and whatnot. So the benchmark has finished. Let's have a look-sees, and first and foremost we need to go back in here and look what we get. So we're getting average frames at 110 and average frame time at 9. So that's actually way better than we had before with the i5 96K in 4K. So we're just gonna continue and see where we end up in regards to this title. I do believe this is gonna be a very quick video because it's mainly just to prove the point of if 99K is better than 9600K when it comes to 2K or 4K resolutions. And as you can see, with everything cranked up, so GPU usage 80-ish%, 6 gigs of video memory taken, 12 gigs of RAM, and we're at 100-ish frames, but we're nowhere near 60 and 95, which honestly already feels like an upgrade. So if I walk around and just do stupid things, we're still above 100%, well, 100 frames I was gonna say, rather than 100%. Let's go and pick some trouble somewhere around here, because we do have some skags to kill, hopefully, just to get some havoc going and see how all the effects and stuff will stack up against us. The frame time, as you can see on the graph, is between 6.5 and 9 milliseconds, as the game's synthetic benchmark kind of predicted to an extent. You have to understand that synthetic benchmarks, one of the reasons I don't usually just show the synthetic benchmarks and do gameplay as well, is because they don't exactly pull the same data stream or the pipelines from actual in-game activities. So, you know, whatever counters you get and whatever enemies drop in, everything in a synthetic benchmark is kind of there already. So, you know, you kind of, you just do this thing over and over again, and it gets stored in the RAM and whatever else, and you just get better results once the pattern is learned by the PC. But in real-time gameplay, the game has no idea, or the game engine has no idea where you're gonna go, what you're gonna do, and it needs to render things while it's doing it. So also, I have level 6 characters, so taking up a buggy without really paying attention is not a smart thing to do, but hey, here we are. And I do have a clone because I'm playing as Zeke, or whoever this mercenary was. Never really got into Borderlands 3 for the simple reason, you know, when you play on 4K with a 96 and you're getting stuttery frame rates all the way, it kind of kills the vibe, really. But, you know, I did finish the game once, you know, go through all the things there, but yeah, there's a little hiccup there, as you can see on the graph. It did drop down to 70 frames for a second, but overall on Ultra I can't really say that this game is actually, you know, running badly. See, I just saw the frames going down as low as 93%, so we're just gonna see what we can get here. They're depleting my shield quite quickly here.
My chili recipe dies with me.
A little stutter on the frame time as well. Not too much, but, you know, just enough. Full health. War shield, perfect, you know. Not exactly unusual. Then again, this is a bit more stutter-less experience than I've seen before with the 96K, which technically is already better, the fact itself that, you know, even though the required CPU is not even top of the line, we're talking like, you know, 9090K or 4950K, it's still kind of, you know, sometimes hogs up your system a little bit. Like the RAM usage has gone up to 12 gigs. And overall performance like of the GPU is not being utilized. And when it comes to 99K and 4070 Ti and 2K, that should be relatively kind of the same level when it comes to it. At least most of the modern games actually utilize the GPU more than the CPU, but Borderlands, specifically because of the graphics and the geometry of the world, does prefer CPU over the GPU workload, which kind of gives you a little bit of a grief here there. Of course, we've got the racks here, which is not too good. Let's get a clone to help us out a little bit. And the more actions on the screen, the more you can see that the frame time and the frames do take a hit on ultra settings a little bit. Now, granted, this game technically does run fine when it comes to it, but sometimes, just sometimes, you do get a system or two that will simply not play the ball with it at all. And this is one of the reasons when this game came out, the people who played the first and second and pre-sequels, the Borderlands, they were like kind of surprised because visual art style and the world size is similarly the same, but not really. You know, depends on how you look at things.
Get the new guy!
But yeah, the performance was just somehow worse, and you could obviously preach, you know, just upgrade, bro. But then again, upgrading for one title with pretty decent requirements, you know, like 1060 6GB version, i5 4950. I mean, that's not a steep requirement in 2025 when it comes to it. And occasional stutter with a 99K and 4070 32 gigs of RAM. I mean, come on, give me a break. But obviously, technically, ultra settings will change a multitude of things when it comes to it, and one of the main things will be the quality of tessellation and all of these black lines. Now, for the Borderlands 2, you could actually have a mod that removes all the outlines from everything black that you see, which will technically take away the load from the GPU trying to render things you don't care about, like, you know, antenna masts and whatever in the distance, because this game does not render things in chunks of the player area. It renders everything. So even things behind me, behind this mountain, is being rendered in real time, just in case I somehow magically find my way towards them and in there. And that's one of the reasons why sometimes you do get a loading screen and a stutter when you enter a new area. Now, luckily for us, I can say that 99K is pulling its weight as much as this old CPU can, and the 4070 Ti is literally just chilling because, as you can see, the GPU usage is going from 80% to 60% to 50%, so you could scream all day about the bottlenecks and whatnot, but then again, you could actually look up the first videos when this game came out, and people with their rigs were getting rather similar performance, and they were asking the 2K the question like, what the hell is going on? Because, you know, when it comes to Borderlands, you are expected to blow stuff up, and if it's not blowing up, you just shoot it harder. And that was the whole idea of the game. And if you can't do it anymore, then the question is, what am I supposed to do? So, yeah, you know, one of those things. But outside of that, honestly, this is now actually playable. So I would want to say that, hey, just take it or leave it, but, yeah. It is actually running way better nowadays. Which only took me, what, like a year and a half to change my setup? Just to play a game that came out a couple of years back. I mean, talk about how quickly the time goes. And I do believe we do have to go and fight the loudspeak or the loudmouth or whoever the little boss was in here. And of course the Borderlands 4 is upon us as we speak. It's been already announced and things are kind of looking good for that game. They're introducing a bunch of new mechanics like the whip, or you know, call it as you want. But yeah, I mean, it's not too bad. And obviously I chose this level just for the mayhem, just so you can keep an eye on the frames. And you know, when you look at the frames themselves, in 2K, 96 to 92, you know, little drops here and there, it's still not as bad as playing this game on 4K when it was literally kinda unplayable when it comes to it. So I do believe I will perish here because I'm level 6 trying to down a level 7 with no upgraded guns, and I never really paid attention to them because, you know, and either you go all in Borderlands or you just don't go in at all. I mean, it's one of those games where you kind of need your gear up to the scratch if you want to dominate the battlefield. And I want to say, you know, in comparison, even right now, if you look at the game itself, GPU usage 55%, 6.5 gigabytes of video memory used, 12 gigs of RAM, 102 frames, goes all the way down to 90 and even 80 at times. So you kind of need to ask yourself a question like, is it actually worth it, or should you just adjust your settings a tiny little bit to give yourself that extra juice? Which, you know, that's everyone's favorite question when it comes to game benchmarks, but I would want to say 2K has gone down the Ryzen way, so everything with the X3D cache will be giving you a pretty significant FPS boost when it comes to it. So I would want to say don't skimp out, and if you're building a new PC, go for that rather than everything else in between. Because honestly, you know, in the long term, it's gonna be still way better than any of the old Intel CPUs when it comes to gaming or any work-related tasks. Just for gaming, 99K obviously will be fine. Depends on the motherboard and the other stuff we discussed in any other videos I made, but yeah, you know, just don't get caught out and you'll be fine. But yeah, I mean, so far it's way better with 99K and 2K rather than 96 and 4, even though we have the same GPU. So take it as a warning or take it as an advice. That's entirely up to yourselves. I know that people will interpret this either way, but yeah, it's just the reality of how this particular game runs, which is not a gospel. It's more about, you know, things are as they are, and we just need to either learn from them or, you know, change things. Also, I am running an XMP profile for this particular game, and we are running from NVMe drive. I'm running stock, and it's just the way it is. So yeah, anyway, I hope you find this a little bit more informative than the statutory mess of i5-9600K, and if you did, great. If you didn't, well, let me know. I mean, it's all good fun, end of the day. Thanks for watching, I'll see you next time. Over and out.